Hi, everyone. My name is Joy Chen with the Eaton Fire Survivors Network. Welcome to our insurance Q&A. This is something that I know we all have been so looking forward to. The Eaton Fire Survivors Network is a community of 1,500 plus displaced survivors from the Eaton Fire. We gather on Discord for mutual aid and to access the expert resources that we need to recover faster and stronger. If you are not already on our Discord, we welcome you warmly to join. I've put into the chat our invite link and welcome you all to join us there. Tonight, we are so happy to welcome Amy Bach, the founder and executive director of United Policyholders. I was talking to my daughter, who was so excited to go to the Eras tour of Taylor Swift last year. And she was asking me who Amy Bach was. And I said, well, you have Taylor Swift, and those of us who are policyholders of insurance companies have this person called Amy Bach.
Oh my.
Since Amy started United Policyholders in 1991, she has been our nation's leading advocate for insurance policyholders. And we are so honored that she has decided to come and join us tonight and help us understand what are our rights and how we can secure the insurance payouts that are our due. In addition to Amy, we have two bonus members of our panel. Annie Barbour is a program manager at program liaison at the United Policyholders, but she's a survivor of the 2017 Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, California. And she played a key role in her community's recovery. And so she's going to have a lot of really great insights for us, both representing UP, but then also from her experience as a leader in her community and leading her community post the fire. We also have Alexis Ricci, who is with United Policyholders now, but previously was an adjuster at 4 major carriers, including perhaps yours, and has also been a public adjuster. So she has really deep sort of on-the-ground adjuster experience. Joining me also from the Eaton Fire Survivors Network is a key member of our leadership team and moderation team, Brian Prosnak. Brian lost his home. My home is smoke damage. So between the two of us, we sort of have some experiences that are representative of our whole community. So most importantly, you all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so glad that you're here. And I'd like to start off first by turning the program over to Amy. Amy's just going to give us a sort of overview of maybe some of the issues that we need to be looking at as survivors of the Eaton fire. So she'll speak for a few minutes, just sort of giving us an overall lay of the land. And then following that, Brian and I will dive right in with questions for our panel. While we are setting up and while Amy is talking and as we go throughout the panel, please put your questions and comments into the Q&A box that you'll see on the screen. So since this is a Zoom webinar, the chats is not working. We welcome all of your questions and comments in the Q&A box, and your questions and comments will be driving our discussion tonight. So with that, I am so glad to turn the panel over to our rock star, Amy Bach.
Well, that is a lovely introduction, Joy. Thank you. And it's really good to have this opportunity to interface with your group. Of course, we're very, very sorry for the circumstances that made it necessary for you to be logging on at 8 o'clock at night, to talk about no one's favorite subject, insurance and disaster recovery. But I'm so proud that that I helped build an organization that has been helping wildfire survivors on the road to recovery since the 1991 Oakland Berkeley wildfire, which hit in my backyard in Northern California while I was working at a law firm as suing insurance companies when they were not treating people fairly. And then, but really, that was kind of a day job for me. And I had already been an insurance consumer advocate starting from the 80s when I was working in the New York State Legislature, and I saw how insurance companies write their own ticket in the halls of power, and how um, insurance is a foreign language for most people, very intimidating, even for lawmakers. And so they have a tendency to believe whatever the insurers say. And I recognized very early in my career that policyholders need a place to go, a safe space, to get the straight scoop on what their rights are and what their options are when they're buying insurance, or when they've had a loss and they need to use their insurance, and they need that investment that they made in buying insurance to deliver for them, to deliver both the money that people need to put things back together, restore, repair, replace what's been damaged or destroyed, but also the peace of mind that insurance companies sell in their ads. So when you buy insurance, you don't just buy um, the benefits that come to you in the claim process. You're also buying peace of mind that your insurance company is going to treat you fairly, that they're going to put your financial, there's actually laws that say this, that your insurance company is supposed to put your financial interests on a par with their own. They're not supposed to put their own profit motives ahead of your interest. So that's, in theory, that's how it's all supposed to work. In reality, you're all in it now. You're all experiencing the reality of the insurance system after a disaster, and all the different financial considerations that affect what happens to you. So all the things that you're grappling with, all the decisions you're grappling with, if you've lost your home and you're trying to decide what you want to do to replace your home, or you're deciding, do you opt into the debris removal, the coordinated debris removal, or not, or do you go it on your own? All those decisions, they are all financial decisions. But the underlayment through all of it of like, well, my adjuster's saying this, is this true? Is that you really are entitled to be able to rely on your insurance company to deliver on those two things, right? Not just the benefits, but the peace of mind. And obviously, for many people, that just doesn't happen, because the way of the world is, cash is king, whatever, the almighty dollar. And so a lot of things that happen along the way after you've lost your home, or your home has been damaged with wildfire debris, smoke, relate to financial considerations. So, if your insurer is trying to is giving you an estimate, for example, that seems really low, there's financial considerations driving that, right? They're using software, or they're using a vendor that plays ball with them, right? They are for-profit entities. So I started my career recognizing that, given the realities of the system, the way it is, not the way we wish it were, not the way that the law says it should be, but the way it is. I set about with a whistleblower who had been with State Farm for 20 years. We came together in 1991, formed the organization, and hit the ground running after a wildfire. And the programming that we built, and the resources that we make available free of charge to people in your situation, are based on 34 years of being there with people like Annie Barbour, who's here with us tonight. Been there, done that, learned a lot of lessons the hard way, has had years and years now of talking to other survivors in the same situation. She hosts our Survivor to Survivor webinars, where you can go on and speak informally with people in your situation. So we've got the homegrown wisdom of people who've been there, done that. And we marry that with the technical expertise of people like Alexis Ricci, who's here with you tonight, who herself not been there, done that in losing a home, been there, done that in adjusting many, many losses, and being inside the insurance system as a company adjuster, and then outside as a public adjuster which is a whole nother kind of world of financial considerations. So United Policyholders marries organic wisdom that we gain after every single disaster, particularly wildfires. That's kind of our specialty. Things that we've learned about remedying underinsurance, things we've learned about how important it is to get a scope of loss agreement with your insurer so that you can reach an agreement on how much they owe you, so you can be free to decide whether you want to rebuild or buy. Marrying that organic wisdom that you gain on the ground with professional expertise. And we have a lot of volunteers, lawyers, public adjusters, remediation contractors, industrial hygienists, mortgage experts, tax experts that have lent some of their expertise to inform what we offer. So I'm gonna just take a quick trip through our website with you, and then we're gonna get into your questions. And again, I'm so impressed with your network. I'm grateful when I see people living our guidance or our suggestions. One of our fundamental approaches that we used after the Oakland Berkeley fire was to help people break into groups by insurance company and support each other and talk to each other, share stories, share ideas. Oh, my adjuster told me this. Well, my adjuster said something else. Hey, they can't be giving they have to treat people similar, right? They can't take one approach with one person, something else, right? And what kind of help can you get for free, right? What can you get? What can you DIY? What can you do yourself, right? That's a lot of what we offer is the DIY. And then where can you go for help and where can you get trustworthy help? And how do you avoid making decisions that are going to really make your recovery harder, like hiring the wrong builder or hiring the wrong lawyer, hiring the wrong public adjuster. Like those are all things that people make mistakes. Listen, we all make mistakes like every day, right? When I was raising my kids, I would say a mistake a day. If I'm lucky, it's one, right? And and one of those really seminal points we make for people in your situation is to be kind to yourself and understand that the pressures that you're under are extraordinary, and it's very hard to make good decisions under that with that much pressure, and especially when you feel like, oh, this one's getting ahead of me. Oh, I should, oh, wow, I'm behind, you know. And so we often tell people, I mean, it's great to commune with your neighbors, but if people are stressing you out with their energy and they're making you feel like you're behind you're, you know, you're slacking or whatever, you know, then you need to kind of bring it back in because I'm sure that you're not, right? The thing is that everybody has to take this at their own pace, and there's just not one size fits all for anybody here. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute, and remind you, I'm so sorry. Hang on one second here. My tech skills are, I'm an amateur, but I do my best.
There you
Okay.
go.
It's
Yeah,
going
we
to go
see
away.
it.
We're going to stay on this for 1 minute. This is just from a town hall PowerPoint I did last night for Malibu. So this is just sort of the greatest hits list of post-disaster insurance challenges, right? And a lot of you are still at that first one, right? You're still trying to decide. On the topic of the coordinated debris removal, generally, it's a good idea. Generally, it's the cleanest, safest way to do it, right? Because the Army Corps of Engineers, they know how to do it. It reduces the number of trucks out on the highway, which is helpful for everybody in general. And also, you know, it's going to get done safely. Now, there are still some questions about whether the county is going to claw back from you down the road any of your benefits for debris removal. So, and a lot of you, most of you, underinsured, especially with the FAIR plan, and you're wondering, I need every dollar of my insurance to get a house to be able to be rehoused. Um, can I do this debris removal program and not worry that somebody's going to come after me? The safe thing to do is to park your debris removal benefits in an account and let it sit there. I know that's really hard for a lot of people to do. I have seen counties clawback. I have seen counties look the other way and not claw back. And honestly, with the scale of this thing, I don't know if they're going to be able to look the other way here. So the safe thing to do is if you have benefits that are specifically earmarked for debris removal, then you want to park those. If you don't have specifically labeled debris, let's say your debris removal coverage is subsumed within your coverage A and it's not a separate, I think it's a lot less important that you park some amount. That's my personal view, but I'm not here to give you legal advice. Okay.
Hey,
Sure.
Amy, really quick,
Yeah.
this is Brian,
Jump
because
right in.
actually the very
I
first
jump right
question,
in.
the very first question in our chat goes to this very topic. So I just wanted to follow on.
I'm fine to go right in with questions and
Joy, are
intersperse.
you okay with that? Because they
Yeah,
were
absolutely.
teed
Jump
up.
in. Thank you, Brian.
So Amy, you gave us a nice summary of kind of how that works. The question in the chat is, well, they came and they cleared out everything, but then there's more stuff that's going to need to be cleared that I need to get rid of. And I'm going to have to do that before I start rebuilding. So should I be using those funds for that? And then will the county come back to me later and say, hey, pay up? And I'll say, I used them all already. What kind of happens in that situation?
Right. Well, like I said, we do not know exactly what the county is planning to do. So that would be a good question to ask your council, your council person, your
County
representative.
supervisor, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we had this question come up last night, actually.
Yeah.
That this person got like a $45,000 bill for things that didn't get removed. Alexis, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. Brian, I think the question really has to do with kind of like phase one of what's been removed too during the debris removal. And that's really the toxic stuff. That is phase one. There's going to be a phase two, which is more, I will call it the hardscapes, the concrete, the foundation, things that are not qualified as toxicity. Those things are going to get removed. Those are part of that consolidated debris removal program. It's just they've got to come through in phases. But to Amy's point,
Oh, yeah.
if you're getting funds from your insurance company that are specifically towards debris removal, park them. This is one of those times too where people have a lot of questions about the process, and the process, it tends to go a little bit slower than people want at this point. So it might be that the answers are coming to your questions. You might just need to wait a week or two to see what's coming through, because there might be another wave of debris cleanup that's happening. You just don't know about it yet. You're not aware of it. And don't start jumping to conclusions about, do you need to do it on your own yet? Yeah.
Let's just, if you don't mind, that debris removal question, is very specific to Los Angeles County. And why don't we not talk about that, and let's focus on insurance questions, if we don't
Sure.
mind.
Okay,
About
that's
smoke
fine.
damage and total loss, because we can get that question answered elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine.
So Amy, why don't you keep going on this?
So here we are with the greatest hits, the worst, greatest hits, greatest, worst hits. So, all these things, rotating adjusters, the mind-numbing frustration of the ACV, actual cash value, replacement cost value, holdbacks. Again, these are things I like, oh, you didn't mention that in your ad, that I was going to have to become a math major to fight with you about, your depreciation, right? So, again, I really, really encourage people to use our website. It is a deep, deep, deep resource for you. And
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit our search feature isn't the easiest. I agree. I admit that. On the other hand, we have depreciation basics on, if you want to read up on this stuff, and we have a lot of samples. So let me just quickly go through this list, and then I'll show you a few places, give you a couple of quick hints.
Amy, I think we stopped seeing your screen.
Oh, are you not seeing the screen?
Yeah, but when we go to your website.
I could see it.
I was seeing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Really?
I'm not seeing it.
Ah,
Okay. Well,
okay,
here we are.
yeah,
Here we
did
go.
I
see it?
Now I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So these are, and I don't mean to minimize any of this, like, oh yeah, this happens all the time, no biggie. I'm not saying that at all. It's not right. It's just what is, right? And because it's been what is forever, like the fact that insurers don't have enough adjusters in state, so they bring people in from out of state and they have to go back home to their families. And that's, it's not, some of these things are not just evil, nefarious, intentional. They're just practical realities, right? So you will have rotating adjusters, but what did we do in California? We passed a law that said if the insurer gives you 3 or more adjusters within a 6-month period, they have to give you a status report so that you're not starting from scratch every time there's a new adjuster, right? The out-of-state adjusters who don't know California rules, that's illegal, right? They're supposed to be, they're not supposed to be adjusting claims if they don't know the rules, right? Those are reasons to file an RFA, a request for assistance, with the California Department. But those are reasons to follow our directive to keep that claim journal every single day. I have a feeling that your group is probably really good at this because you're all here and you're all astute students of this process. But really, I can't emphasize enough, having a written record of everything that happens every day, if you can force yourself to do that, it will really help you. It will help you stay clear, because most people in your situation, it's not, you have brain fog, you're not sleeping normally, or it's like the highest stress ever. So having it all written down will help you. You don't have to try to remember, what did that guy say? What was I supposed to do now? How did we leave that? That kind of thing, right? Okay. It also, as we tell people, like, you always want to try to wear the white hat, right? And put the ball back in the insurer's court. You're the cooperative one. You're doing what they have asked you to. They asked you for something, if you can give it to them, you give it to them. And you confirm. This will confirm that I have provided you with the information that you asked me for, so that your paper trail shows you as the cooperative person and them as the uncooperative, if that's what's happening, right? Obviously, some insurers treat people better than others. And I know, for example, from the beginning of this disaster, I immediately was in touch with somebody at the Fair Plan, one of their lawyers, and said, hey, a lot of your people are going to be underinsured. So how about if you cut them checks more? How about you just pay policy limits? That was my first ask. Just pay policy limits. For a lot of reasons, they're not going to do that for everybody, but I do believe that some Fair Plan folks are getting 50% of their more than even what the statute requires. And again, if you hear of somebody who's gotten a cash advance from the Fair Plan or your insurer that's bigger than what you got, boom, you write your letter to your adjuster and say, my neighbor insured with the same company as me got more of an advance than I got. What is the story with that? And again, you're probably
Amy, can I just stop you right there? I just want to
Yeah.
understand tactically exactly what happened, because you're giving us like a huge amount of really important information. One is, just backing up for a second, you said to keep this journal of logging all of our communications, what's happening that day. Is that journal only useful for if we someday sue? Or like, what's the purpose of that journal?
No, I mean, it's a double purpose. It's to help you keep forward momentum
Okay.
your own journey, and to
Mhm.
not reinvent and have to go back over something that you already kind of took care of. But yes,
Okay.
it's also very helpful if you have a lawsuit and you want to show, I think, look, anybody who was affected by the Eaton Canyon fire, most people are going to be also seeking some recovery if they have an insurance gap from SoCal Edison. So no matter which way you're going, it's really, it's that paper trail is to empower you. It's to keep you strong, is really kind of the bottom line, right?
Okay, and then the second question that you brought up is super important. You're saying that, and this is something that we heard from a previous guest on Thursday nights, that insurers are supposed to treat all policyholders the same,
Yes.
right? So that if one of us hears that somebody else who's, with our same company got something, we can you're saying we can go right back to that company, be like, hey,
in writing,
how come I didn't get that? So
right,
can we just get into the brass tacks? And this is why we set up all these insurance channels, right? So that people within each carrier can have that information and be empowered with the power networks, sort of collectively.
right.
Can I
But
just
I do
understand
want to put a,
specifically, like,
I have to put a
what-
caveat here.
Okay, yeah.
Put a caveat. Each policy is different, right? So your
Yes.
policy may be different from your neighbor's policy. So when I was talking about disparate treatment, or that, I was really talking about where the insurer does something above and beyond. So if they're giving you a cash advance, that's more than they're legally. So the law says that the insurer
Okay.
had to advance you 4 months of ALE, right?
Mhm.
And 30% of your dwelling coverage as an
Yeah,
advance against your contents up to 250,000. That, so my point, so if, but like I've heard quite a few people say they got a 50% advance from the FAIR Plan. So what I'm saying is, if the FAIR Plan gave somebody more than they were legally required without
okay,
requiring, let's say, an itemized inventory, or without requiring a proof of loss, that would be an example where you'd say, hey, I would like that same accommodation, right? That's all I'm saying. It's very
right,
important people understand, your deductible, whether you have code upgrade coverage or whether you have extended, that's your policy, not
Mhm.
that, right? It's your policy. So in
That's
some,
excellent.
right, in some situations, you will get different treatment, but that's because one person has better coverage, and that's just, maybe they had a better agent, or what, lots of different
Yeah.
reasons could happen.
So, but just last question on this disparate treatment, because I think this is so important for us when we're noticing in our channels that somebody else is getting better treatment.
Yeah.
So you're saying if there's a legally required and then somebody else is getting better, what does that communication to my adjuster need to be? Do I have to be like, hey, I noticed that Brian over here, do I have to quote that person's name, or do I just say, I have a friend, like, what does that letter say or that
Maybe you
email
don't
say?
want to rat out your friend.
Right.
On the other
Exactly.
hand, you can say, I have documentation that another policyholder who's similarly situated, you can give enough detail without saying their name. And if the adjuster writes
Okay.
back and says, can you give me some proof? Then, whoever gave you that information, if you can get them to give you something some letter or an email or something that proves the point, that would give you ammunition. I mean, a lot of
That's good.
what we offer on our website, to be really like blunt, is ammunition, right? It's so that
Yeah,
you can be
that's
the
what we
fifth
need.
wheel that gets paid. And there's no guarantees. I mean, plenty of
Yeah.
people have to go to the mat, and I don't, I'm too old to like sugarcoat things. So at this point, like, I don't want anyone out there thinking, oh, all I have to do is file a request for assistance with the Department of Insurance and all my problems will be solved. Like, that's not true, right? It's a no-brainer to try it. It's a free resource. And when the department gets a request for assistance, which is their technical name for a complaint, and the insurance company has to answer them. So it definitely gets attention. It may not get a resolution, but it gets attention. So it's generally worth trying. I mean, there's a few things that the department is rarely going to be able to fix. One of them is underinsurance, right? They will, if there's a clear mistake in the way it was issued, if there was a error in the address or the square footage, or something, those are the two main ones. Those are the two main grounds that the department will be able to, but if they get enough similar complaints, again, for example, now this is history, but after the Oakland Berkeley fire, so many people were underinsured through the same agent, through one agent, Charles Strahan, that the department actually did an enforcement action against that agent, and they got a settlement, and people got, there were so many people that were underinsured through the same agent that there was a little bit of a remedy there, through the department. But again, I don't like to raise hopes unrealistically, so we try to give people different channels of try this, try that. Okay. So let's
Great.
just get through this
Hey.
list and take a quick look at the website, and then we can get to the questions, if that's okay.
Okay,
Is that,
it's
yeah? Okay.
8:30, so we wanna,
All right.
yeah.
All right. So look, the FAIR Plan is a world of challenge in and of itself. At last night's Malibu Town Hall, there was a FAIR Plan representative who brought a whole bunch of FAIR Plan people there to help answer people's questions. The department's going to do another one of their workshops, I believe, and they bring insurance company representatives there. And apparently, at one of the last ones they did, there were so many FAIR Plan complaints that they made the FAIR Plan bring extra people, and they were there until 10 o'clock at night. No one needs to do that. I understand. On the other hand, what I'm telling all of you is, yes, the FAIR Plan is overloaded. Yes, they're taking a hard line on smoke claims, and they're probably going to get smacked for it at in some way. But right now, all you can do is try to put one foot in front of the other with the adjuster that's assigned to your claim. And if they're blowing you off and they're not answering you, you file that complaint with the Department of Insurance. You go to your elected official, because the department has an ombudsman that also handles complaints that come in through elected officials, so you can elevate it that way. All right. And if those things don't work, then you can get professional help. That's my view.
Okay, so specifically, Amy, on the California Fair Plan.
Yeah.
The biggest question that we are seeing here tonight, as well as in our Discord, is California Fair Plan is not paying for smoke damage. What do we need to do to get the California Fair Plan to cover smoke damage?
And Joy, I would say
rather than
broadly,
say-
we're seeing that across, the network is showing that across many of the insurance companies, so let's expand
Okay.
it broadly.
That's what I was
Okay,
gonna,
there you go.
that's exactly
Thank
what I
you.
was gonna say. And you asked a question earlier, like, is this a new phenomenon? It's not a new
Yes.
phenomenon with insurance companies, taking smoke damage less seriously than they need to and not agreeing to pay, for the real, the deep cleaning, the replacing things, the more comprehensive remediation. That has been going on for a long time. I think the first time I remember wildfire survivors really kicking up a big fuss about it was in Colorado in like 2013, I think it was. And of course, it's always State Farm is first in the line of fire because they usually are the toughest, often or can be the toughest. And I remember being at a big community meeting where people said, oh, my State Farm adjuster said, here's a bottle of bleach and a sponge, have at it, kind of thing, and look, we're hearing horrible stories out of your fire. There's no, I cannot, deny, right? There was just a news story about, that aired last night about, a fire survivor having their insurer say, oh, this can be cleaned in an hour, and and with basically what an expert described as like spraying deodorant, which is not gonna, that's
Yeah.
not.
So
So
how-
the point is, this goes back to what I said in the beginning. This is a money problem. It costs money to pay for pre-cleaning testing, which is very important. It costs money to pay somebody to scope the remediation plan. It costs money to pay somebody else to do the remediation. It costs money to do the post-cleaning testing. That's money. So that's why, I mean, we're all like smarties here, right? That's why insurers have over the years tried to minimize the way that they handle those claims. And until the internet really connected people and science, and I think that there was a lot more superficial smoke damage cleaning that was going on, and now that's just, people are not putting up with it. So, and I think, so the answer is, how do you get them to, so I think
Right.
You have a sophisticated.
Yeah, what are the keys to success
Okay.
in trying to push the envelope on this?
I'm
Oh.
going to interject in here because, you know, you're going to have to be the squeaky wheel. There's no way about it. As Amy said, the carrier is going to push back. They've got paradigm, they've got a process inside. They're not going to talk about it. Those claims adjusters are getting information from top down on how to handle that claim, how to adjudicate a loss, how to interpret a policy. They are not going to push back on that process, because one, that process is in place to get that claim settled as quickly as possible with the limited and reduced amount as possible to pay on that claim. They're not going to pay extra money for something that they don't need. So that homeowner needs to be aggressive. They need to be polite. They need to be aggressive. They need to ask questions of their adjuster. Well, why are you not paying for this type of testing? How do I know what needs to be done if there's no testing telling me the protocol? Show me where in the policy that is not covered. So that homeowner needs to, unfortunately, get themselves educated, get themselves proactive, and almost drive that claims process and not let that adjuster drive that claims process. What happens in a catastrophe situation, and a lot of our consumers are finding this, is the adjuster keeps changing. You get one adjuster, 2 months later, you have a new adjuster and a third adjuster and a fourth adjuster. So keeping that diary of who you talk to, what you're talking about, those specificities, who promised what, very, very important, because that is the process on the carrier side to get you a little confused, to make it difficult to get the answers that you need. So unfortunately, you have to be a proactive person to really push your adjuster to explain, well, why are you not covering this? This makes logical sense. This is logic. If you can explain to your adjuster why logically you need testing to figure out what needs to be remediated, removed, replaced, cleaned, and then come up with a game plan, then that makes logical sense. The carrier is not going to push back as much. But unfortunately, like everything, that squeaky wheel is going to get the grease. Don't lay down. Expect that adjuster, especially out-of-state adjusters who are not, not proficient in California law, not proficient in wildfire, not proficient in the cost that things, that things cost here in LA, California, all of that, they're going to push back. They have no idea. They're just following protocol from the carrier inside, top down. But unfortunately, we have a really smart group, and this group has to be empowered, but do it politely. Do it respectfully. You're going to get a lot more with honey than yelling at someone, yelling at that poor adjuster. That adjuster has 100 other claims that they're working on. They don't know you, unfortunately, from Adam, and that sucks. That really, really sucks. They can't empathize with you as much as you think that they should, and they don't know your policy as well as they should, and that's unfortunate. It really is, but that's the truth.
Yeah, and
Internally,
so
that is the truth.
so it is the truth, and you're hearing it from somebody who's been in that role. But I really do want to answer the question, what can you do in addition to being the squeaky wheel? Because I feel, having been on your site and looked around, a lot of you have already done exactly what Alexis just said. You have thrown it back on the insurer to say, hey, this I don't this doesn't seem like an acceptable approach. I don't feel safe with the approach that you're taking. So if those of you who didn't know about the webinar that we did about 3 weeks ago, okay, I wanted to kind of get through this list, but and then I will show you where you find it. We did a webinar. We had a panel with 4 experts, an industrial hygienist, a lawyer, a public adjuster, and a remediation contractor. And we did a prep call and we drilled down, and I think you all know this. There are not clear standards in place for wildfire debris, smoke, remediation, and acceptable indoor air quality after a wildfire, right? There are indoor air quality standards, but there's not an agreed upon protocol, which is part of why the insurers can continue to kind of
Yeah,
do it the way they're doing it, right? So
yeah.
when we did our event a couple weeks ago, and we were preparing, we sort of forced the experts to agree on four things. The protocol. Pre-cleaning testing is important so that you know what's there, and then you can design the cleaning plan according to the findings, right? So you're not just going, oh, I run my finger here and it's not dirty, so we don't need to, right? You have an expert do the testing, then somebody else designs the cleaning. So that's number two. And then somebody else does the cleaning, and then they can get retested by the original person or what have you. But those are the four steps that insurers should be taking, and those are the four steps that you should be pushing for. Now, I know a lot of you are already down the road, but they've already are step like basically what's happening is the insurers are only interested in step 3 and 4, right? They're interested in doing some cleaning and then doing, if you're lucky, some testing, right? The problem that you are all having is that you don't feel like the cleaning was adequate, right? You just don't feel like somebody with the right qualifications really made that determination. You don't really trust the insurers, people, maybe, what have you. So what we are recommending to people is that you do pay your own out of your own pocket. If your insurer won't pay for pre-cleaning testing, you pay for it, you submit the bill to them, and you ask them to reimburse you. And if they say no, then you continue to push, you file your complaint. And if your insurer stands their ground after doing all the things Alexis walked you through doing, then it is time to talk to a lawyer, because there are lots of lawyers that are there. There's one lawyer that has been attached to us, and just somebody I actually went to law school with, Dylan Schaefer. If you haven't researched him, he's been doing battle on smoke damage claims with the Fair Plan now for quite a while. And his email to me today said the dam is breaking. So we'll see. So what's on the horizon? United Policyholders has been looking for every kind of avenue that we can build for you to get some clarity here, because I don't know, Colorado, they passed a bill, they were going to do a study, and have all these smoke experts, and like, we don't have time for a study. So I feel now that if you can pay out of your pocket to get a trustworthy assessment of the situation with your home, it's worth it. If you don't have the money to pay for it, there's a lot of charitable funds that are opening up, the Fire Aid concert thing, the Department of Angels, the Change Reaction. There are some pots of money that I think will be available to people to pay for industrial hygienist testing, or indoor air quality expert testing. So that's kind of my bottom line is, I'm having a meeting tomorrow with the Department of Insurance. They're very worried about it. You all know that you maybe don't know this. There's a court case pending. And understand this about the Fair Plan. The Fair Plan is an involuntary association of insurance companies. Okay, just remember that word, involuntary. They don't have any brand pride. They're not out there trying to get you to think that they're your friend and good neighbor, right? They don't care what you think of them. They're there because they have to be there, right? And the same people, the same executives that run insurance companies run the Fair Plan, right? Now, I believe that some people are going to be okay with the Fair Plan because they are under the glare of the media now, and they are under the glare of elected officials, but they do not necessarily respect the Department of Insurance. The Department of Insurance had ordered them about 3 years ago or more probably, to sell a normal policy, a normal homeowner's policy. And they said no. And so there's been like a lawsuit going between the DOI and the Fair Plan now for quite a few years. And we're always trying to help. We weighed in and everything. The Fair Plan's policy language, we don't pay if you don't see it or can't see it or smell it, with the naked eye.
Yeah.
We called them out on that 5 years ago, and the department is still in negotiations with them, says that they're not going to hold enforce that language anymore. But now that this court case is pending, the Fair Plan's kind of emboldened. So I don't mean to go on and on about this other than to give
Yeah, I
you.
want to wrap this part up, Amy, if we could.
Yeah, we
Sure.
should. Okay.
Okay,
So-
so Amy, that's really helpful. I'm just doing a time check. We got about less than 15 minutes left. Let's focus on some rapid fire kind of questions that we're going to pull from the chat.
All right,
You
why
can
don't I
take
stop
the slide
sharing
down.
and let's just get into it.
Your link is right to your, right on your screen there. So folks can go there to see your website. It's a wonderful website. It's
And
got
we'll
so
follow
much
up
information.
afterwards with that.
We'll follow up after. So let's kind of go to a little bit of rapid fire and see how many of these questions we can get through the Q&A, because I know our listeners are really interested. A couple questions go to, hey, I thought I was insured with my dwelling. Now I'm getting estimates and I'm underinsured. What am I supposed to do about the situation?
Well, again, I mean, I always start with, so there's this concept of a scope of loss, right? That's different from an estimate. So if you're underinsured, you want to find out how underinsured you are. So a scope of loss is different from an estimate because it details quantities and qualities. How many square feet? How hardwood floor, carpet, what grade, all that stuff. If you can get on the same page with your insurance company about a scope of loss, it's much easier to figure out. Then you can get prices on that, and then you can figure out how underinsured you are. That's generally the prescription that we offer. And because I think a lot of people think they're underinsured, and they are, but they just don't know how underinsured. And I personally feel it's worth actually paying somebody to help you do that calculation. Alexis, do you want to have something to say? Because I know that's something that public adjusters do. We teach people how to DIY it, but for a lot of people, it's kind of like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard situation. A lot of people are underinsured right now, especially in the wildfire situation. You've got increased costs for rebuild because of just the wildfire itself. We're not even taking into consideration the whole issue with the tariffs coming down the pipeline. But to Amy's point, you can't start comparing apples and apples and looking at costs until you know what the scope of the work is. No contractor should bid on that. And then you take that scope to know really truly what you are, if you are underinsured, what the tax ramifications could be, how you can work with your financial advisor on that. That's a big thing. So you've got to take it one step at a time. There are a lot of multiple, very intricate parts to this. And really, if you think you are underinsured, definitely reach out to a tax accountant, a tax advisor, because there are some offsets that you can look at from the tax purposes. And that's going to really affect how you rebuild, who you're getting loans from, what kind of loans you're securing, rates, all of those things.
Yeah, and just on the scope piece, the important thing is, how much would it cost to put back the home you had? So, and that's a hard thing for people to want to put time into, because almost nobody wants to replace the home they had. Let me just say, Joy, and Brian, you've got 41 questions in the chat, so we're not going to get to them. So we can come back. I'm sure, I think Annie hasn't even gotten a word in, and she's a treasure trove. So
Yeah.
we can definitely come back if you'd like, but however you want to keep going, because I just want to make it clear, the idea of a scope of loss and which I think is like incredibly important, is you really, what the insurer owes you is what it would cost to put your home back, stick for stick, board for board, up to your policy limits, right? And until you really figure that out, you're kind of shooting in the dark.
Great, thank you for that.
Can I follow up on Annie? Go ahead,
So
please.
this really is and we advise this from the get-go, make sure you stay involved with FEMA. If you get denied because you have insurance, please appeal that and keep appealing it. They can help navigate some of that loss of use when you run out. And SBA loan, again, if you get denied, appeal it. Lower that dollar figure. Those would be two of your tools that you should be able to count on a little bit. And it's not always insurance money that will get you back home, all of it.
Thank you. We're hearing tonight over and over again that we need to be proactive. We heard earlier in a Thursday Zoom that if an insurance company tells you no, take it as not yet. And that, as you said, we have to keep going. We do have a question in the chat, though, is saying, like, are we worried about retaliation? And for us, especially about non-renewals, that people are terrified that if they're too much of a pain in the butt or too proactive in advocating for themselves, then they're going to get that letter that says you're not being renewed.
Well,
So
right now,
is
you're
that a
protected.
risk
Yeah,
now?
I don't think you should worry about that. First of all, you have a 2-year non-renewal moratorium if you were directly impacted by the fire. So they can't drop you for at least 2 years.
So you
Smoke
have your
damage?
current policy, you have your current policy right now.
Right,
Let's say
Okay.
that started in November.
Right.
November runs to November. Then you
Right.
got 2 more years after that. Is that what
2
you're saying?
renewals. I believe it's 2 renewals. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
And
I'm
that,
not
that includes for smoke damage people, not just total loss people?
Yes, and I'm
Yeah.
not,
Okay.
well, actually, the 1 year for sure for smoke, I need to double check that. You definitely get 1 renewal if you are in the zip code or near the, in
You're
one of the
in the
zip
zip code or in an adjacent zip code to a disaster zone, then you
And-
have a 1-year moratorium on the non.
But if
So
you,
you're
but
saying pursue your claim, don't let the risk of
don't
non-renewal
worry about
keep
that.
you from pursuing your claim.
Don't worry about that because
Okay,
a claim is a claim, and you being a pain in the butt is not going to make the difference. They're going to analyze your policy according to whatever their business objective is at the time that your policy comes up.
And honestly, this is your biggest investment in life. You bought that insurance, you need to get your investment back. And that's your number one concern at this point.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's important not to forget what Alexis said about try to, don't be a jerk if you can help it. I know nobody intentionally is a jerk, right? But like, if the record shows that you were always, pugnacious, it just lessens the empathy for you. And if you do go through a lawsuit, then the court and the jury, they see it and they say, well, this person was not very cooperative. So you do need to it's hard. It's really hard to temper your frustration, but just
Absolutely.
try to be businesslike is the advice.
Absolutely. Quick, this should be a quick clarification question. You had made a comment about out-of-state adjusters. There's nothing per se wrong with out-of-state. They're not illegal or anything. Your point was they just don't know the California policies. And if that's the case, you need to kind of push extra hard. It's not like our folks should be saying, oh, that's an out-of-state person. I want an in-state person.
That's
right?
a
That's
good
not
point.
what you were saying.
No, not at all. No. And the reason we published the California Claim Rules 2025 is because we have really special rules here. Those 2 advances we talked about, that's California only. The rule that you get to take if you have a replacement cost policy, that you can reach an agreement with your insurer on what they would have owed you if you did rebuild, and you can take that same money and use it to buy a house elsewhere. There's only 2 other states besides Cali that have that. So there's a lot of rules. We have a lot of rules. That thing about the rotating adjuster, that's just California. There's a lot of other and depreciation has to be based on condition, not just age. Those are California rules.
Yeah, and
Well-
sometimes to the point, Brian, is an out-of-state adjuster is in sticker shock. They come to California and they'll get an estimate from a contractor and they'll be like, oh God, there's no way that house cost that much to rebuild. They just don't have a good understanding of the cost and the materials that happen here. So
Very true.
you do need to push back. You have to absolutely, there should be no reason that you shouldn't ask your adjuster why. Explain why. Explain why. Do not be afraid to ask your adjuster why, because when you ask why, they need to clarify. And if the clarification does not make sense, that's a red flag. You just need to keep going down that rabbit hole. But do it politely, because from an adjuster, I will tell you, that person who calls and leaves really crappy, angry voicemails is not the first person that I want to call back at 8 o'clock in the morning when I come into my office on Tuesday.
Yeah,
Mm,
So just
really
telling you,
important,
okay?
really important.
There's still that human element. Well, we are
Absolutely.
getting close to the end of our time together, and thank you so much for offering to come back. I mean, you guys are just such a gold mine of information for us. I would love to hear from Annie.
And Joy, I have a question for you that came from the chat. Will this
Okay.
recording be on our Discord?
Yeah, so all of our recordings will be posted on our Discord the next day in the EFSN resources channel. We also have our own YouTube channel, and you're welcome to subscribe to that. It's EF Survivors on YouTube. And so if you're in the Discord or if you're following along on YouTube, you're welcome to look for those. We also have an AI summary of all of ours, and it'll be in the YouTube summary as well as in our Discord. Annie, I'd love to have you have the last word as somebody who has been through a fire and been a leader in your community through it. Do you want to wrap us up tonight with a few minutes on what advice do you have for us?
My biggest advice is to know that this is real trauma. And every survivor, whether you are a smoke or a total survivor, or even if you just had to evacuate, but you were challenged by all of this, we all have this wonderful anxiety that spins in the middle of our chest because we've lost our sense of safety. We've lost our future, is what it feels like, because we felt very secured by the fact that we had this home. And we lost those things that made us feel comfortable in life. And so your number one priority needs to be to take care of yourselves. That's your number one, yourselves and your families. The rest, if you do your homework, will fall into place. And it'll be challenging. There is no doubt. But banding together and making sure that you have a network that you can rely on and parcel out the challenges like this group is doing, and getting the answers for the whole is huge in recovery.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your hard-won wisdom, Annie. Thank you so much to Amy, our rock star, Alexis, our rock star, Annie, our rock star. We're so honored that you've spent a little time with us tonight. We would love to have you back. We will be posting links. We'll be following up to asking you for specific links on your website for the most important resources that you would recommend that we review on your website. We'll be sharing those with our community. And actually,
I can answer those questions. We can handle those things that have been left unanswered.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to make sure I have a copy of all of these questions, and we'll be forwarding them on to you. So thank you so much for coming in, and thank you all three of you for being in our Discord. You know, when you have time to come in and answer questions, we'll be grateful for that. And in fact, Annie's remarks just now are a perfect introduction to our Zoom Q&A next Thursday, which is with the long-term recovery group, which is something that we've not really heard about around here for a campfire. The guy who is in charge of the long-term recovery group after the campfire, who also was a FEMA official, he'll be telling us about this process of setting up an LTRG, which is going to be in the cards for us here in Altadena. And this is going to be a group that is funded by FEMA, that will include government officials, nonprofits, and members of our survivor community, if we're interested, that will shape our path forward for the next 7 years. So we'll be having a representative to show us what that process is, so we can know what's ahead for us and we all can think about how we want to participate in our broader recovery. So look forward to that next Thursday. For now, thank you so much for being our friends, our supporters, and our biggest champions, Amy, Alexis, and Annie.
Thank you.
Um,
Yes.
Thank you for having
Right,
us.
thank you, Brian. And yeah,
Thank you.
definitely
Brian.
save those questions that were in the chat and we will get you answers, or we will work out a way to get you answers.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And to all of us who joined us tonight, especially thank you all for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.